All right, what's going on, everybody? Hi, I'm the original gamer, CoCo-to-USB, and how are you? And I'm doing a video series here that is going to show you how to install emulators for the Color Computer, my beloved computer of my childhood, what defined the 80s for me, what made me the person I am today. What we're looking at here in its beautiful glory of Battleship Gray was the original Tandy Radio Shack color computer, also known as the CoCo. And for those of you who are familiar with my color computer gameplay videos that I do here on YouTube, the majority of them were done using an emulator. What is an emulator? What is it? An emulator is basically software that pretends to be hardware that allows you to run other softwares. It's very popular in retro computing to use an emulator and run an old system on a modern computer. So let's jump in and let me show you what the heck I'm talking about. And this one is going to focus on the Virtual Color Computer 3, also known as VCC. I'm going to do a couple of different videos, and each one's going to show you a different emulator and how to set them up. But we'll start with VCC because it's the easiest to get running. The one caveat to VCC is, as you can see by what I'm running here right now, I'm running Windows. VCC only works on Windows. Where do I go to get VCC? Well, I've made your life very easy. If you go to imacoconut.com, that will take you to my website, and everything you need will be here. So the link here, imacoconut.com, is here. That rolls over to my website, to my color computer links page. And so on here I have links for everything you'll ever need for the color computer, or everything that I've discovered for the color computer anyway. So we're going to choose the second link here, which is VCC CoCo Computer 3 Emulator 2.0 Update. I have the link to the original VCC, but it's in a new project. It's in a new form, and it's in process to be made better. And it will eventually run on Mac and Linux, but right now it's still running only on Windows. So let's click on the link here. This will take us to the page we need to get the latest version. So this is a GitHub repository. This is the official download site for here. And here is the file here. It says VCC 2.01 Bravo-final.zip. This is the name of the program we got to download to get it on here. Here's my little download doohickey here. Now VCC is downloaded. So where do I go now? Well, I'm going to go into my downloads folder. So here's the download file right here for VCC 2.01b final. Now this looks like a folder with a little zipper on it, and that's because this is what's known as a zipped file. It's a compressed file, so you need to do a right mouse click, hit extract all. Go ahead and hit extract. This will open it up in a new folder, and this is the program we need to run to install it. It's the full name of the file is called VCC 2.01b CoCo 3 Becker Port Emulation Setup. Oh, that's a mouthful. All right, so we're going to double click that. We are going to hit run. We're going to hit next. We're going to hit I accept. We're going to hit next. We're going to hit next. We're going to hit next. We're going to make sure here it says full installation, including manuals. We're going to hit next. It's going to say, where do you want to put it on your start menu programs group? That's fine. CoCo 3, create a desktop icon. That's checked. That's fine. Let's hit next. Let's hit install. We are done. We are absolutely done with installing the Virtual Color Computer 3. Now here's the icon here on our desktop. Let's go ahead and fire it up. What I love about this is that once you install it and once it's up, you're up and running. You are running in a Virtual Color Computer 3. And right now you are in the basic language. You could actually start programming in BASIC, but what we need to do is we need to insert a few cartridges here to allow us to load disks and to allow us to run other cartridges. So we do that by installing what's called a multi-pack interface. If you look right behind me here, right back here above my thumb, if I can't move my thing in a mirrored image, but right here above my thumb, that's an actual multi-pack interface. There's a color computer right there. So a multi-pack interface was kind of like a sidecar that plugged into the side of your color computer and allowed you to, have more than one doohickey plugged into the side, because the original color computer had only one cartridge slot on the side, so you could either run just a disc controller or just a game cartridge or just your music stereo synthesizer card. You could only run one thing at a time, so the multi-pack interface allowed you to have up to 4 devices. So the Virtual Color Computer 3 will actually emulate the multi-pack interface too. So in order to do that, we're going to go to cartridge and we're going to say load cartridge. And now you have a couple of different options here. The one we want to install, this one right here that says MPI.dll. That's our multi-pack interface. When I hit open there, it actually reboots the system. It still says extended color basic, but now when I go to cartridge, now I have 4 slots for my multi-pack interface that I can play with, and I have multi-pack interface config. So what I want to do right now is in slot 4, I want to insert a floppy drive controller. So I'm going to go over here to where it says MPI slot 4. I'm going to hit insert, and the thing I want to choose now is called FD502.dll. That is the floppy disk controller. So now when I go to cartridge, and I want to now go to multi-pack interface config, what I have here is a slider, and this is kind of a top-down view of what the top of the multi-pack interface looked like. You had slot 4 all the way towards the back or the top, depending on how you look at it, and slot 1 in the front, and then you had a little slider switch here where you could slide between slots 1, 2, 3, or 4 before you turned everything on. So now that I've installed that, if I press F9 on my keyboard and I reboot the CoCo, now it says disk extended color basic. So I've now inserted a disk drive controller. I now have a virtual floppy drive ability on my color computer, and I can even load disk images. At this point now, we have installed our emulator, and we've configured our emulator to do just about everything that we need it to do. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you where to go to get some software to run on your virtual color computer. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm John Linville.
And I'm Neil Blanchard.
And we are the CoCo crew. We are here at the last day of CoCo Fest.
It's been crazy. We are exhausted.
It's been a great weekend, one of the best CoCo Fests I can remember. I wish you could have been here. And all you have to do is make the decision and come next year.
Always come next year. Yeah.
But in the meantime, listen every month too, the CoCo Crew podcast.
Thank you for listening. Thanks.
Okay, we're back. Now we're going to go get some software. And I still have minimized down here my website. So when you go to my website, the VCC here, open in a separate tab. We can close that tab. If you scroll down just under the emulators section here, I've got a link on where to go to get software. And there's a couple of good places to get them, and I'm going to show you 2 different places, and they're both good places. One of them is the CoCo Archive Repository. The other one is Curtis Boyle's Disc Collection from Curtis Boyle's Game Site. There are a few more here as well for your convenience, but I'll focus on some ones that have a large variety of things to get. So if I go to the CoCo Archive Repository, this page here now has different things. So I can load disk images, and I can get cartridge images. Let's go ahead and grab a cartridge real quick. These are the old cartridges. I don't have one right in front of me for a CoCo, but here's an old Atari cartridge, right? So Color Computer had cartridges too that just popped in the side. So we're going to pick a cartridge, and we're going to pick, let's just say, let's get, I want to get something that's going to show off the mouse. So how about Clowns and Balloons? Okay, let's grab Clowns. Now what I also want to show you here is that these things end in .ccc, and for whatever reason, the Virtual Color Computer Emulator doesn't like these being called .ccc, so we're going to have to change that. What I've experienced now is I'm using Google Chrome. If I click on Clowns and Balloons and I go to download this, oh, it actually did download it. I've seen some before where it opened it up in a weird text on my browser. I had to do like a right mouse click, hit save. I've actually downloaded clownsandballoons.ccc. Now let's go back to the parent directory. Let's download a disk file for the Color Computer, and I'm going to find one under Games because that's all I care about. And let me just find one of the most iconic games for the Color Computer. Under D, we're going to get Donkey King. Okay, Digger, 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 Donkey King, Tom Mix Software, zip. I'm going to click on that, and that's now downloaded. So that's one way to get some software. One is another way. If you go to Curtis Boyle's disk collection. Curtis Boyle has all these things alphabetical, and the nice thing about what's on Curtis Boyle's website is that anything that's here is officially sanctioned by the author and copyright owner to have these softwares distributed and used, not to be resold. So they are still under a copyright. They're still owned, but you can download these and use them for free. You just can't resell them. So let me just find another one that I'll just grab from Curtis Boyle's website. And let's see, Temple of Rom, one of my favorite games from Rick Adams. If I click on Temple of Rom, what I'm looking for, okay, Temple of Rom is a disk image file too. So here on Curtis' website, number one, he gives you a description of the game, tells you who created it, what year it was released, how much memory it requires, what systems it'll run on, and whenever possible, it will also include a download when the author has given permission for that file to be downloaded. So I'm going to download Rick Adams' disk as well. So now that we have these things downloaded, how do we install them in our emulator? Well, it's a little tiny bit tricky. I'm going to go back to my downloads, and now I have one file here that's called Rick Adams disk. This is Temple of Rom. I have to extract it, and when I extract it, this is the actual disk image here. Okay, so I have one disk image. Now Donkey King software, Tom Mix software, I hit extract. I hit extract. Here's that folder here. This one's got a folder inside a folder, so I'll have to try to consolidate those. And then last but not least, this one here that says Clowns and Balloons, that ends in .ccc. You actually need to click on this and rename that .ccc to .rom and make it a ROM file. So now what I want to do, just to make my life a little easier, is I want to try to clean up and consolidate some of these downloads. So I'm going to create a new folder on my desktop. I'm going to call this folder CoCo Games, and I want to clean up some of these things that are here. So what I have here right now is we can go ahead and put the disk image in my CoCo Games folder. I can now take the Rick Adams disk folder here, and I'm going to drag this over here. That has some Rick Adams stuff on it. And then I'm going to go to Donkey King, go inside Donkey King, and drag Donkey Disk and put that over here. So at this point now, I've got one folder that's got 3 different doohickeys I can load into my emulator. So I've got a ROM cartridge, I've got a disk for Donkey King, and I've got a Rick Adams disk for Temple of Rom. And I'm not sure if one of his other games is on there too, but we'll find out here in just a minute. Now I've got games downloaded. How do I load games into the computer? Well, let's start with the cartridge. First thing I would do here is I would go to, because I'm managing things through my multi-pack interface now, you don't want to insert it straight to the cartridge slot. You want to insert it into a multi-pack slot here. So if I want to run Clowns and Balloons, I'm going to go to multi-pack slot 1. I'm going to go to insert, and now I've got to browse to where the file is. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to go to CoCo Games, and here's Clowns and Balloons. Now you notice how this shows up now because it ends in .rom. If it was still in a .ccc, it wouldn't show up here because the VCC emulator doesn't recognize the extension of .ccc. It wants to see it as a ROM file. Now maybe when they update it, it'll be smart enough to not care and just take it no matter what it's called. But for now, you're going to have to do that little process of renaming the last 3 letters of the file name. Once I hit open, I've inserted a cartridge into the computer. Now, just like on a real color computer, you would actually have to turn it off and change the slot. So in this case here, I'd go to MPI config, and from here I would move my slider over. See, now you notice that slot 4 has the floppy drive, slot 1 has Clowns and Balloons. I need to slide my slider to slot 1, and boom, it comes up. Now another thing you're going to notice here is that the colors are off. This looks black and white, and that first title screen looked a little wonky as well. And that's because the VCC is emulating a Color Computer 3, which uses RGB colors and was designed for a computer monitor and doesn't do the old school color artifacting that old TVs did, analog TVs. So what you need to do here for your configuration is you need to go to Display, and if you're running an old Color Computer 1 or 2 game, you got to change your display to composite. Now when you do that, one of the things you're going to notice is that a couple of things here. The one downside of using VCC is that these red and blue colors, which are known as artifact colors, they were actually vertical stripes of black and white lines, but our old TVs and the way the signal was produced caused the illusion or the artifacting of colors red and blue, and so it was very popular to have most of the games use this mode. So we had 4 colors: red, white, blue, and black. The VCC does not emulate the color blues and reds the way they looked on a TV. It's a very hard blue. It's almost like a dark navy blue, and it's a very hard red. On the original computer, it was a softer color. It was more like a sky blue, and the red was kind of like an orange. But so the colors are a little bit off. They're not as true as they looked, but they work. So at this point now, I'm playing a cartridge. Now, if I want to load a disk image, I'm going to go back to my cartridge slot. I'm going to go to MPI config, and I need to slide back to slot 4. Now this might actually lock up the machine, and I think it did. Alright, so how do I reset the machine? It's F9. When you press F9, you will reset the machine. Now at this point, I'm back in my disk extended color basic because I moved my multi-pack interface to slot 4 where my disk controller is. Now I need to actually go to here to cartridge. I need to go to drive 0. And I need to hit insert. I didn't know I hit eject by mistake here. I'm going to go to cartridge, I'm going to go to drive 0, I'm going to hit insert. Here I have a couple of different disks to choose from. Let's try Donkey King first. I'm going to hit donkey.dsk. That's my disk image file. And notice it remembered the folder. It remembered I'm pulling things from my CoCo Games folder. So I'm going to hit open. Now, because this is an image of a floppy disk, you have to treat it as if it was a real floppy disk, and you have to do a couple of disk commands. And so in the days of floppy drives, when you ran BASIC, you had what was called disk extended color basic, and there were a couple of disk commands. One of those commands was called dir. If you type in dir, you will get what's known as a directory and a listing of what's on this disk. And the only thing that's on here now is what's called Donkey, which is our Donkey King. You'll notice that this is the name of the file, and you'll notice that here this is what's known as the extension. These are the last 3 names of the file. And for the things that we would be loading, it would either say BAS for basic or BIN for binary, meaning it was a program written in machine language. It's more like a commercial product than a homemade product. So most of your commercial games were binary files, right? They're written in the machine language. How do we load a binary file? Well, we type in load M for machine language, then we do a quote, and we type in the name of the program. So in this case here, I'd say load M donkey, and I think if I hit enter, it will load it. So now it's going to take a few seconds because it's actually emulating the time it takes to load from a disk. And now that's been loaded, I type in exec, E-X-E-C, and that would basically execute the program. Another thing you're going to see here, well, number one, the blue is not as true of a blue, but it's blue. One of the other issues with artifacting is that on a real color computer as well, when you ran artifact colors, sometimes the red was red, sometimes the red was blue. And so most games gave you a screen like this that said, all right, if this screen is not red, then hit reset. Well, this is not a real computer. Right now, if I hit F9, I'm just going to do a reboot, but it's still going to stay blue. So if you need to change the colors on VCC, you need to hold down F1 and then press F9. Press F9 again. This will reboot the system, and now when I'm going to have to reboot it, I'm going to have to reload the game. So I'd type in dir to see that there's donkey. I would type in load M donkey. When it comes up, I'll hit exec, E-X-E-C, and now the screen is red. Whenever the colors are wrong, when your red is not red, and when what's supposed to be red is blue, and what is supposed to be blue is red, when those colors are flip-flopped, you need to hold down F1, function key 1, and F9 at the same time, and press F9 twice to reboot the VCC to get the colors. This was actually the same way it worked on a Real Color Computer 3. Real Color Computer 3 did not have this random luck and random logic as to what the colors would show up as. It said, I'm making these colors because we need to make them, but I'm doing it in a more smarter way. So if they're not right, if you press F1, it will automatically switch it. Before, it was kind of luck of the draw. You might have had to reset a dozen times. So Color Computer 3 was pretty straightforward. So hold down F1, reset the machine. It flip-flops the colors. Now I hit enter. Now it's going to load up Donkey King. So this is the process to load a disk image or load a cartridge image into the computer. The last thing that we need to think about and talk about with playing emulators is using a controller. And this is where I ran into issues, where a modern PC's joystick does not play or feel or respond the way the original Color Computer joysticks did. So that's the first challenge, is just the actual physical controllability is a little bit of a challenge. But a bigger challenge has to do with how the joysticks are recognized by the Color Computer. So what I want to show you right here is an original Color Computer joystick. And when you look at this joystick here, you can see that it's analog. It spins in 360 degrees. It is not self-centering. And it's very loose and freewheeling. Now, as a kid, I, for the most part, could not stand these joysticks because they felt kind of like cheap pieces of crap, and they didn't play like an arcade stick or an Atari stick. So for the majority of your traditional games like Donkey Kong and Pac-Man, these things were a major pain. But I have now come to, as an adult, appreciate that, because as I've been trying to play these old games on these emulators, I'm like, you know what, this new joystick just doesn't cut it. It doesn't feel the same. It's not as fluid. And the worst part is you cannot recognize the corners. So your diagonal moves on a modern joystick are not picked up by our emulators because they don't give off the same values. So I'm going to show you some examples of that. Okay, so I've plugged in my Xbox 360 controller. Now, an Xbox 360 controller is analog. As you can see here, it is loose and it is, you know, kind of 360 and freewheeling, but it won't recognize the corners. So when I go top left, bottom right, upper right, lower left, those corner positions are never recognized by the emulators because the joystick is not giving off the same values. The other issue is the fluidity of this. So if I go back to my multi-pack interface, by the way, your joystick needs to be installed and recognized by your computer before you start your emulator. So right now, if I go in here and I go to my devices, I should see, here's my joystick, right? So as long as your computer recognizes your joystick, your emulator will as well. So, but I have found that adding the joystick while the emulator is running doesn't help the emulator find the joystick. You can go into configuration. You can go to config and you go to joystick here. And in this case here, for my left joystick, I'm going to say yes, use my Afterglow gamepad. And I'm telling the emulator which joystick to use for my left or my right. Notice there's a mouse option here too, which is actually pretty good for some paddle games. Is that some games will use the left joystick, some games will use the right. Now the VCC can basically say make both sticks the same, and so that way you don't have to worry about changing anything. In this case here, I'll make both sticks the same. Select level, press button. When I press a button right now on a normal Xbox joystick, notice that basically I'm in the middle, and I've kind of got three positions. I've got far left, far right, and center. And it's very difficult to use my thumbstick to get anything between far left and center. There's not a lot of shades of left and right. There's basically hard right, hard left, center, and it's really, really difficult to get in between. It feels like you're fighting against the stick. It feels like the game is resisting you, and it's not as fluid, it's not as responsive, and it results in poor gameplay experience. But this is the downside of some of the things that happen when you use modern technology. So when it comes to a game that requires a joystick, this is a little bit of a pain. One of the things you can do with VCC is you can go into configuration and you can basically say for the joystick, well, use my keyboard instead of my joystick. And you can even remap the keys that you want to use for different things. In the case of a game like this that uses a paddle, you can also say use the mouse. In this case here now, if I use the mouse, a mouse would actually be a lot more fluid for a game like this. A paddle game like Clowns and Balloons and like Popcorn or Breakout or Bust Out, these type of games here would actually work better with your mouse. As you can see here, the mouse is working a little bit better. But you know, I started off using emulators because I didn't have access to real hardware. I had not started my obsession on buying, you know, dozens of vintage things off of eBay, which is a whole other problem that I'm seeking help for. But what did I do to solve this problem here? If I want a true color computer experience and I want to use an emulator, what was the fix? I'm going to show you right now. My solution came to me from the Color Computer Facebook group, and I got a magic box like this. This is called the Tandy Sticks. This is a prototype, but what it has is it has the original DIN connectors that the original Tandy joysticks use. I can plug in a real Tandy joystick, and then I can take this and plug this into my color computer. So what this is essentially doing is this is a color computer to USB adapter, and so it's allowing me to use the original joysticks on a modern computer. So let me plug that in. Should hear plug and play come up. So now I'm able to use this. So when I go back in here, and one of the things you'll notice, one of the things I'm going to notice here when I go to my devices is that the name should change. Now it says Adreno Micro. This is what this box shows up as like, and it does show me there's an issue with something, but it actually works, so that I'm not worried about. When I go back into my emulator and I go back to my configuration and I go to joysticks, I'm going to say use the Adreno Micro joystick. And now what we will see here is when I press the button, look how free and quickly this works. I am so loose, I am so free. I can move these guys from left to right. I'm not stuck with hard left, center, hard right. I am any shade of gray between left and right. And it's very fluid, it's very responsive. This is now allowing me to use a real color computer joystick, which is the best way to control these type of games, and it's a more authentic feel. So how would you, the person at home, get one of these? Well, I'm not exactly sure that this is a mass production product just yet, but his name is Jayeson Cyril. He is on the Color Computer Facebook group, which there is a link to that group on my CoCo links page under imacoconet.com, and I will find out from Jayeson if he wants to have his email address or something published, and if he wants to you know, entertain requests from random strangers to get one of these things made. I was lucky. I saw him posting about this on Facebook. It was kind of a project he was working on, and I had explained to him, you know, I was having trouble with emulators and some of my challenges, and he basically, when he was done, he says, well, I got some leftover parts, I've got some scraps, I'm going to throw together one for you based on my leftovers. And he sent it to me, and he gave it to me absolutely free, which was pretty cool. And he sent it all the way from Australia, so you know, it couldn't have been terribly cheap to send it either. But I can tell you what, I am real happy with this. I'm also lucky enough now too, where I have been able to obtain real color computers, and so now all my new videos, for the most part, are recorded on a real color computer using a real color computer joystick. So it's a full retro experience. But it took me about a year to get to that point, and every now and then it's still just kind of convenient to do something on an emulator. So as you can see here, I am now doing this, and so I think we're going to end this video here. This has been everything you need to know about how to get the Virtual Color Computer 3 up and running, and how to play clowns and balloons on top of that. So I'm going to do a few more of these videos. I'm going to do one on how to install and configure XRoar, which is another great emulator for the Color Computer 1 and 2 that does a much better job on the red and blue artifact colors. Also emulates the Tano Dragon, which was the UK version of the Color Computer. And then last but certainly not least, I'm going to do a video on how to install and configure the MAME emulator to run Color Computer stuff as well. So I hope you did enjoy this video. My name is CoCo-to-USB. I am the original gamer on YouTube, and I play all kinds of retro and modern computer games. Would really love it if you check out some of my games on my channel. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, give it a big fat thumbs up. If you want to get notified of new offerings on my channel, then hit the subscribe button to my YouTube channel. I'd also appreciate it if you could share this video and share my channel with your friends. I will see you all next time. Keep on gaming. Long live the CoCo. Check out the CoCo Crew podcast and CoCo Forever. And hey, got your CoCo 3 yet?